Becoming a professor is a dream for many PhD students, but not everyone can become a professor. In fact, most do not. Therefore, it is very important to guide PhD students in a proper way, and it is very important to give good tips. And therefore, I am making this video for you. This is Chaitanya Samhara, faculty at the College of Business, University of Texas Arlington, and I am at University of Texas Arlington campus in my office. Okay, come on. We are in the month of August already, and academic job market is in its full gear. I was myself a PhD student for 6 long years, and believe me, it is much nicer to have your own room and a faculty office rather than being a PhD student, right? If you're a doctoral student and going into the job market right now or about to go to job market in the next 1 to 2 years, this video is for you. I will share some important tips that I'm very sure will be immensely helpful to you. Everything I say in this video comes directly from my own individual personal experience. The first thing first, the first and most important tip, I need to give you a little background story, okay? I was at a conference in Milan in Italy in 2013 December, and one of my peers from the PhD program was in the job market at the time, and he was hoping to get interviews and he was getting none. And the reason he told me is that he was very late in applying to all these interviews and jobs. Now, he told me that he applied for those positions in November, which was way too late. He told me to apply as soon as June and July. And I heard him and I took that feedback from him. I decided to not to make that mistake that he had made. So what I did when I was in the job market is that I started applying soon enough. I think that I was a bit late myself. I should have started preparing my packet in the month of May, whereas I actually started preparing my packet in the month of July. I think I was 1 to 1.5 months too late, but that was still okay. Now, my first tip is to prepare your job market packet early enough, as soon as May or June. You need to start working on your CV, your cover letter, your research statement, your teaching evaluations. You need to find those people who will be recommending you and try to get those recommendation letters from them. All of this takes a bit of work. Actually, it will take a lot of work because everything needs to be in top-notch quality. Make sure that in all of your documents there are no grammatical errors. There should be no spelling errors. Do not make those silly mistakes. I would even recommend that you reach out to your successful seniors who have gotten good jobs and ask them for their materials. Now, please mind that you should not copy paste anything. You can just refer to what all they had said in their packet. For example, what they said in their personal statement, how their cover letter was, how their research statement was, but write your original work. It should completely reflect your research, your personality, not somebody else's. And then when you're applying to a university, please be mindful that each application can take anywhere between 30 minutes to 2 hours. Therefore, you need to exercise maximum caution. I would even recommend that create a new folder for each application that you put in, okay? And for each application, copy paste all your material and then format that material as per the requirements of that particular university. And make sure that when you are putting your packet in for one university, you never make that mistake of putting some other university's name in it. Be very mindful of that. I had applied to around 55 universities when I was in the job market for the first time. And there was one application where I had failed to correct the name of the university. I copy pasted the document, but I forgot to change the name of the business school. And guess what? I did not even get an interview call from them. And I don't blame them. I made that mistake only once, but be very mindful of not making that mistake yourself. So do not screw this up, and remember, your effort in the job market will be much more than you expect. In my case, it was many times, maybe 5 to 6 times more effort intensive work than I had anticipated. And it takes so much of time and energy for you and probably your advisor as well. The second tip I have for you is to apply broadly. Do not be restricted to a few schools. Be more open-minded. You might think that your profile is good enough for a certain number of schools, and you do not need to apply to some other schools that you think are too low for you. But guess what? You're not the only person applying for those jobs. There are other people as well. If you're a PhD student, it is quite possible that other people who are already assistant professors in some other universities are also applying to change their jobs and get the same job that you are trying to get. What happens then is that if they are ahead of you in their research career, their profile might be stronger than yours, and more so, their research profile might be a better fit for that university than yours. Therefore, you thinking that your profile is strong enough and you do not need to apply to some other universities, you could very well be wrong. Simply put, you cannot reject a job that you do not have. You don't know who your competition is and you can do nothing about it. And be mindful of the fact that you'll have both good interviews and bad interviews. You might think that this job should be easy for you to get, but what if you screw it up? What if you make a fatal mistake in your interview? It is quite possible, right? I have made some big mistakes in some of my interviews, and guess what? I did not get a call from them. And I don't blame them, because even though I was very well qualified for them, but inadvertently, unintentionally, I might have said a few things that did not go down too well with them. And in this regard, a very important tip I will have for you is you will have some good interviews and you are very likely to have even some bad interviews. No matter how well or how bad you perform in those interviews, just move on to the next one. The third tip I have for you is that if you are entering the academic job market, you should be very obsessed and completely committed to get a job. Becoming a professor at a university is no joke. It is very difficult. Therefore, you should be very proactive and very prompt. If a particular hiring committee chair sends you an email, you should respond to it as soon as you can. I would actually recommend that you respond to those emails or phone calls immediately, within a few minutes. If you think there is an issue and that you need to consult some seniors or your advisor, then do that, but you should still respond to that email within a few hours. In my case, the longest I ever took to respond to an email when in the job market from a university, I might have taken around 6 hours. Okay, I never took more than 6 hours for any email or any phone call. Phone calls, for the most part, I pick them up right away. The fourth tip I have, again, before I give this tip, I have a story to tell. My doctoral advisor once complained to me that a senior of mine had not even had a single practice interview before going into the job market, and that he was not pleased with that. And I heard that and I kept that in mind. So when I was in the job market, I made sure that I have enough practice interviews. In fact, I had approached 5 professors to get those practice interviews done. And with my own advisor, he was one among those 5 people. I had practiced with him, I think, around 3 or 4 times. A very important point regarding this is that each interview that I had gone for practice, each of these professors asked me completely different set of questions. Each and every one of those practice interviews actually really surprised me, because I was not expecting those questions. And I was recording all those practice interviews and I took notes. Once the interview was over, I figured out where I had gone wrong, what mistakes I had made, and then I corrected myself. Now guess what? When I went for actual interviews at a conference, not a single question surprised me. You know why? Because all those questions I had already faced during those practice interviews. And remember that all these professors who are giving half an hour of their time to practice an interview with you, be sure to thank them. They are doing you a great deal of favor. The 5th tip I have for you, again, I should tell you a story, okay? The 5th tip I have for you is to identify the weaknesses in your research. Assuming that you are vying for a research-oriented job at a university setting where you are going to become a tenure-track professor, it is important to know the issues and weaknesses of your research. Because let's be real, there is no research that is perfect. Every research has its limitations, and it is very important that you're aware of those limitations. What happened is that in my first campus visit, I reached California around 6 in the evening, and then I had an all-day interview the next day. At that time, a thought came to my mind. What are the weaknesses in my research? And as biased I was, I thought my research was perfect and there was everything correct with it and nothing wrong with it. But I also knew that I was being delusional. So what I did then is that I called up my doctoral advisor and I asked him, can you please tell me what are the weaknesses with my research? And he was like, what are you asking? There are several of these weaknesses. You should know these weaknesses. And I said, okay, can you please tell me what those weaknesses are? And he listed 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the 4 issues with your research, and these are the limitations that you should acknowledge, or you should try and correct those limitations if possible. And guess what happened next? The next day when I was presenting my paper, each one of those 4 issues were identified, and I was ready with my responses. Either I acknowledged the limitations of the research work, Or I countered those questions by telling them why this is not really weakness and why this is not an issue to be worried about. I did really well in that interview. In fact, all those people who attended my interview then said that this is a really good quality work and it should get published in a top journal. The sixth tip I have for you is to prepare hard for your job talk. You need to have really good set of slides. In fact, you know how many times I had to revise my slides before going for my first job talk? 21 times. It was 21st version of the slides that I had actually presented. And then you need to practice each and every single slide multiple times. You should not fumble. When you're presenting for yourself, you will actually notice that this is the point where I'm fumbling and this is the point which I'm not communicating convincingly enough, and therefore I should practice it more times. I was practicing for that interview with my advisor, and we had decided that there were 5 key slides in my presentation. 5 very important slides, and my advisor made me present those 5 slides again and again and again for 4 hours. He kept practicing with me. I cannot thank him enough for doing all that for me. And then at a point I gave up. I said, okay, I don't think I'm presenting it the way you would want me to present, so can you do me a favor? I will sit here and can you present those slides to me? There was one particular slide in my job talk, and that slide was about the results from my study, and I was not presenting in a way that would punch you hard and would tell you that how good this research is, and I was not pulling it off, right? Now, when my advisor presented that to me, I recorded him for next 2 days. I watched that tape again and again and again, and I really understood how that slide should be presented. I learned how to effectively communicate my points for that slide. And the 7th and the final point I have for you is to get blessings from your advisor. In many ways, you are not alone in the job market. Your advisor is also with you. Even though you are the front face, he is in the background helping you get a job. In my case, I consulted my doctoral advisor for even smallest of the things. For example, for the conference interviews, I even called him up and asked him, should I dress in 2-piece suit or a 3-piece suit? He said 2-piece suit. And then when I went for a campus visit, I was asked to come for dinner, right? So they picked me up from the hotel. And then just before they picked me up, I called him up again and said that, you know what, I'm presenting my research tomorrow, but for the time being, I'm going for a dinner. Should I still dress up in a suit or can I go with business casual? He said, the moment you step out of the plane and until you get back to the plane, you are interviewing. So be at your best. You should not go business casual, go with business formal, put up a suit. So I listened to him and I did what he said. Now guess what? The department chair came to pick me up from the hotel for dinner, right? And he himself was wearing a proper suit. And not just that, the other 2 faculty members who were at that dinner were also wearing a suit. So imagine how awkward and bad it would have looked if I was dressed in business casual while the people who were interviewing me were dressed in business formal. Therefore, an important tip regarding this is that you need to be at your best behavior at all times. You cannot slack off at any given point while you're interviewing. Because remember, interviewing for an academic job is very stressful. You need to muster up all the energy that you can. I would even go ahead and say that it is very exhausting to interview all day and be at your best. Therefore, while you're interviewing on campus, as much as possible, take restroom breaks. You may not have the need to go to restroom, but it will give you a couple of minutes to wind down and relax and then go back to your interviews. And finally, when you get your job, consult with your advisor regarding how you should negotiate your offer. Although I admit it depends on your chemistry and your rapport with your advisor, but if you can get all those insights and wisdom from him or her, that could be very useful to you. So I hope that all this was helpful to you. If you have questions regarding anything I said, if it is a relevant question about your academic job market search, I will make sure to respond to your comment and answer your question. I wish you all success in your job search in academia. I wish that you also become an assistant professor in a tenure track position, because very few people can get it. But I hope that if you are watching this, you are one of those people who crack their interviews. Thank you for watching.